I'd like to get your opinion here on this take that I'm about to put forth to the world, and it goes like this. Firstly, one, Mike Budenhauser is getting fired. Is that how you say his name? Budenholzer is getting fired. This guy, despite his success, and he's got a ring, forgot to call a timeout in the most important game of the season when his team had the ball twice. Twice. Yeah, twice. And I can't wrap my head around this. I can't wrap my head around this. Okay, you see these things, these brain farts occur in the regular season at times, especially teams often that are not playoff teams, and whatever. Okay, but this is a team that was the first seed in the East, that was favorites to go all the way, and they had timeouts at the end of the regulation and timeouts at the end of overtime, and they failed to use them. And the first part here is that Mike Budenholzer is losing his job. I can't see anything else happening there. I can't see them keeping him. And this takes me to the second point here, that I think the Bucks championship window is closed. I don't think Giannis is going to win another ring unless somehow he goes out there and adds a three-pointer to his arsenal. Maybe he does. We talked about Jimmy a lot this week, that does a Jimmy that he can't actually shoot it, but suddenly goes out there next season and shoots three or four and makes them at 35% in a game, and mixes it up and adds something more to his offensive game, because the NBA has caught up with him. You know, it's there's ways you can stop a dominant player by simply getting those layups and dunks over and over and over again in transition. And I don't think the Bucks and Giannis are going to win another ring.
There is that potential for him to have the Dirk sort of narrative where he's always around, but it only needed that one magical run to actually get it done. Giannis does probably need to add a jump shot for the preservation of his career. He can't be doing this at 33, 34, right? We see Westbrook doing it at a high clip, but Giannis is a lot bigger and is starting to pick up injuries, right?
Mm.
Based off that style of play, he does pick up a couple of injuries. He's always around the ring, and that is where more rolled ankles, bumps into your knees occur. Um, I guess I want to start this with, this isn't Giannis's fault. I've seen a little bit of this rhetoric kind of spinning around. He could have hit more free throws. Everyone could hit a shot because it was really a one possession game. Anyone could have hit a shot and they're in a better stead. Um, Naturally, what happens then is we look at the things that we as fans could have controlled, right? Or if we were playing 2K, what could we control? We could have controlled a timeout. There's no argument against it. He did not use timeouts on a couple of occasions, even in game 4, when they're on that massive streak and you don't use a timeout to stop the momentum.
Mm.
You're using your challenge in the first quarter when maybe you should hold on to it, considering that most of these games have been quite close and you may or may not need it for something. It's They are inexcusable, right? Because you don't want to get to the end of a game and say, "Oh, I had a spare timeout left." Like, yeah, that's bad revisionist history when you could have done something. It's not like, "Oh, I wish I didn't use it because I could have used it now." It's no, you actually had it and you just didn't use it. You've got clearly some issues with your freelance offense where I don't want to run a play. Like, let's say it's deliberate. I'm not going to call a timeout. I want them to just get a flow, keep the defense scrambled, create something. Well, your freelance offense was Giannis scrambling, Middleton not wanting a shot, and then Grayson Allen not figuring. Like, Grayson Allen shouldn't get crucified for this. There's no way he should have had the ball in that situation. That's a role player being expected to take the game winning slash series saving shot. That's not what's supposed to happen in those moments. Um, you look at a franchise like Toronto, who's moved on from 2 Coach of the Year candidates, right? Probably early or maybe at the right time. Milwaukee may or may not be indebted to Mike Budenhauser. Maybe there's a really strong connection with Giannis. I know that he's very loyal to that fan base, but clearly they need a bit of a shakeup. If they shake it up, Nick Nurse is the name that comes to mind instantly. Maybe they get Nick Nurse, right? He's clearly available now. Maybe they get a personnel shift around. All right. Maybe Middleton's not it anymore. Maybe you move off him. I don't know. Maybe you move off Drew. Maybe you move off Brook. There's value in those pieces, irrelevant of what's happened in the series. But this team cannot continue as is, right? With this team as is, we will not take them seriously in the playoffs again.
Oh, look, you. Look, I don't know. I think at the end, if we and I know we talked about we're going to down the track break down a lot more of these sort of last sort of possession plays more in depth and stuff like that. But just to sort of casually talk about what happened here in game five, effectively, at the end of regulation, I understood that Butler scored that two. There was point 0.5 on the clock, and they had one timeout remaining. Okay, and that's sufficient time to try something. That is sufficient time to try something in an elimination game where you just try anything. You try everything. You empty
Well,
every
it's a
bullet you
refunded
have.
timeout
You know,
too. Like I
yeah,
believe you
and
get an additional timeout in
and
overtime anyway.
and you've got Giannis obviously to roll to the rim. Obviously, point 0.5, it's probably hard to draw up a sequence that you're trying to pull off there. But you throw at the rim, you're looking for a tip, okay, or something like that for Giannis, or I don't know, some other play if you're trying to do a little bit of misdirection. I don't know, okay, but there's options left. And then the bigger one here is at regulation, where I really believe they had two timeouts remaining. Okay, and you sort of said it yourself. The ball ended up in Grayson Allen's hands, and you're asking a role player to create his own shot. It wasn't you're asking him to knock down a catch and shoot. You're asking him to create his own shot. And I could understand Mike Budenholzer's sort of thought perhaps, all right, when they grabbed that missed three of Gabe Vincent, I think it was, and Giannis, I think, had the ball pushing it in transition, you let that play. But as soon as Giannis ran into trouble, he ran into defenders. They took away the lane and they weren't going to give him a layup in that situation. Okay. Someone had to call a timeout. Like Chris Middleton could have called a timeout. All right. When the ball found him, I think near the elbow, he could have called a timeout. Yeah, you've seen that before, right? You wrap the ball up and you call a timeout. Yeah, that you're allowed to do that in the NBA. Okay, but nah, that didn't happen either. And then that effectively is what happened. And they didn't get a shot off, and the Bucks are done. And that and all of that rests solely on the head coach. And I think that's the whole point of this take.
Well, there's even the fact that the team is better than Miami, or at least we would assume them to be better than Miami. We've got games in which the Bucks had 10 plus leads and lost them. Um, and you've got a series in which Giannis did still play 2.5 games. And I know that that shouldn't be held against him. He didn't play all of the games, but the reality is, any game that he played, they lost. So it is a surprise that you go from a 50-point finals MVP closeout sort of caliber player who has won MVPs and is always in the MVP conversation and led this team to the number one seeding, all of a sudden can't do anything about the Miami Heat slash Jimmy Butler. And don't even like we don't even need to delve into what everyone's already talked about. How do you not double Jimmy? How do you not just let Gabe Vincent or Max Strus or Duncan Robinson shoot you out of a game? How do you not let them beat you instead of the guy who's beaten you time and time again? Why do you let him go off again?
This is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist and giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.